Ref the first time I met Kenji, he was trying to kill himself. Not literally, but close enough that when I pulled up to the Biscayne Bay research dock at 6 a.m. on a Category 4 hurricane morning and saw him standing on the deck of the Coral Crown, loading servers and hard drives into waterproof cases like the wind wasn't already gusting at 40 knots, I thought, this man has a death wish. My name is Diego Torres. I'm 24, Cuban-American, third-generation fisherman from Little Havana. My family has been pulling fish out of the Atlantic since my grandfather bought his first boat in 1987. I know how to read water. I know how to respect what's coming. And what was coming was Hurricane Alicia Category 4 system with winds of 150 miles per hour, a projected landfall in Miami in exactly 8 hours, and a man in a NOAA research team polo shirt who was apparently willing to die for his data. You need to get off that boat, I called across the dock, already moving toward the Maria Elena, my family's commercial fishing vessel. 32 years old, reinforced hull, engine that sounded like it might explode but never did. He looked up, and I saw his face clearly for the first time. 26, Nigerian-American descent. Dark skin with this copper undertone that caught the early morning light. High cheekbones, eyes so intelligent they looked like they could see through water. He was soaking wet, not from rain, but from sweat and the spray off the bay. I'm not leaving without the data, he said, and his accent was pure Miami. But underneath it was something else, his mother's language, maybe. The way certain syllables bent different. The data will be underwater in 8 hours, I said. You will be too, if you stay. Exactly, he said. And he smiled, actually smiled, like I'd just proven his point, instead of arguing against it. 8 hours to offload 3 years of coral reef monitoring data? 8 hours to save the only genetic record we have of the bleaching patterns in the Miami reef system. If I don't get this off the boat, when Alicia hits, it all drowns. I understood then that I was looking at a man who'd made a choice. Not a stupid choice, a necessary one. The kind of choice that separates people who think about survival from people who think about meaning. I'll help you, I said. My father had taught me that the ocean was a language. You learned its grammar by watching how the water moved, how the color changed, how the air tasted before a storm. My father had also taught me that sometimes the most dangerous place to be was not out on the water, but standing on the dock while someone else was drowning. I left my boat's secure lines doubled. Engine shut down. Everything battened and crossed to the Coral Crown. This wasn't my vessel. Research boats are different from fishing boats. Cleaner. More fragile somehow, even though they're built to last. This one had scientific equipment everywhere, sensors, monitors, underwater camera housings, and in the cabin. Rows of servers with lights still blinking even as the hurricane approached. Kenji, he said, extending a hand. Kenji Okafor. Thank you for not leaving me to die alone. Diego Torres, I said, and his hand was warm and solid. Also, you're not dying. Not today. Should probably stop talking and start moving then, Kenji said. 3 years of coral reef data is not a small thing. Kenji explained it to me. While we worked toward tried to explain it, the data was backed up on 3 separate server systems. It included genetic sequencing from coral colonies that had survived the 2023 bleaching event. It included temperature gradients from 30 different depths. It included growth rates, photosynthesis, efficiency measurements, symbiotic bacteria populations. It was the map of how reefs died and, theoretically, how they might be saved, and it was all about to get absolutely destroyed by salt water and hurricane surge. Why didn't you back it up to the cloud? I asked, helping him lower the first server case down to the dock with a rope system he'd rigged. We did, Kenji said. But the cloud backup was corrupted 3 weeks ago. This is the only uncorrupted copy. If this goes underwater, 3 years of work vanishes. The coral bleaching database vanishes. The research we were planning for 2025 becomes impossible. I could see it on his face, the weight of that responsibility. He wasn't just trying to save data. He was trying to save coral that would never know he'd saved it. He was trying to save ecosystems that might already be past saving. He was trying to hold back an ocean with his hands. That's when the wind shifted. The first gust came from the southeast, not the forecast direction. Hurricane systems shift. They surprise you. They do things meteorologists don't predict. My father had lost a friend to a surprise hurricane shift in 1999. I'd grown up understanding that weather could lie. "We need to move faster," I said. Kenji looked up at the sky. Saw what I saw, the clouds rotating, the color changing. The particular quality of light that meant atmospheric pressure was dropping dangerously fast. "How much faster?" he asked. "Fast enough that we might actually survive this," I said. We started running by 7:15 a.m. We had 2 servers and waterproof cases secured in my truck. By 7:45 a.m., we had the 3rd one. By 8 a.m., Hurricane Alicia was accelerating the projected landfall, moving from 2 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. The hurricane had strengthened to a Category 5 as it approached. A Category 5 is not a hurricane. It's an extinction event wearing a name. "We're not making it to higher ground," Kenji said, looking at his phone. The roads were already congested with evacuation traffic. What should be a 30-minute drive was becoming a 4-hour standstill. "We're not trying to," I said. "We're going back to the Maria Elena." "That's a fishing boat," Kenji said. "Not a safe harbor." "It's the safest harbor in Miami right now," I said. "Because everyone else is running away, which means the fishing district will be empty. Which means I can position her in the marina where the outer breakwater protects from surge. And we ride this out in the cabin." "With 3 years of research data," Kenji said. "With 3 years of research data," I confirmed. He looked at me like he'd never seen anyone quite like me before. "You're either extremely brave or extremely stupid." "My family would say both," I said. "Get in the truck." The Maria Elena is a 32-year-old Gulfstream commercial fishing vessel. She's not pretty. Her paint is faded, her deck is perpetually wet. Her cabin smells like salt and diesel fuel, and the specific perfume of fish that's soaked into the wood over decades. But she's mine, my father's before me, my grandfather's before that. She's survived for hurricanes. She's weathered storms that sunk newer boats with better insurance. She's a fighter, Kenji. Helps me move the servers into the cabin and secure them in the lower hold, the most protected space on the vessel. I started the engine. It coughed, caught, rumbled into life like it always did. And we motored into the marina, just as the rain started. Not light rain. Not even heavy rain. The kind of rain that comes sideways because the wind is so severe it's literally pushing water horizontally. The kind of rain that turns the world gray and makes visibility about 20 feet. The kind of rain that sounds like bullets hitting the deck. "Get inside," I told Kenji, securing the last line. "And don't come out unless the boat is sinking." "How will I know if the boat is sinking?" Kenji asked. "You'll feel it," I said. "Trust me, you'll know." Inside the cabin, with the engine running for power and the windows sealed, we had maybe 10 minutes before the absolute worst of it hit. Kenji was doing something on his laptop, checking the servers, monitoring the data integrity in real time. His fingers were shaking. Not from fear, I realized. From adrenaline? "Talk to me," I said. "Tell me something true." He looked up. And there was this moment, just a moment where his professional mask dropped. "I came to Miami 2 years ago because my research was rejected everywhere else," he said quietly. "I'm studying whether we can genetically modify coral to survive higher temperatures. My own department said I was wasting time, that the reefs were already dead, that by the time we develop a viable solution, there would be nothing left to save." Outside, the wind howled. The boat rocked. "So I came here and funded the research myself," Kenji continued. "Worked with Noe, took a research position, spent 2 years proving that the reefs weren't dead, that they could survive. That if we understood the genetic pathways, we might actually be able to save them. And now?" I asked. "Now a hurricane's about to destroy everything," he said, "and I'm on a fishing boat with a stranger. And somehow that feels like the first time in 2 years that anything has made sense." The boat shifted suddenly, a big swell from the outer bands of the hurricane making it past the breakwater. Water sloshed across the deck outside. The cabin creaked. "Are you seeing anyone?" I asked. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't calculated. but it was honest. Kenji looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. "No," he said. "Are you?" "No," I said. "But I want to. Right now. Before we either die or survive this." He kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a desperate kiss, the kind of kiss you give when you might not get another chance. His hand was in my hair, my hand was on his ribs. And we were both shaking from fear, from adrenaline, from the recognition that we were alive, and this was real, and nothing else mattered. The boat rocked again, harder. "Should we be doing this?" Kenji asked against my mouth. "Absolutely not," I said, "but I don't care." By noon, the eye of the hurricane was 10 miles offshore, moving slower than predicted. By 1:30 p.m., we could hear the roar of it, not the wind sounds. But something deeper, something like the ocean itself, was screaming. The barometer on my cabin wall had dropped to 915 millibars. The lowest I'd ever seen. We took turns. One of us monitored the boat while the other checked the servers. One of us listened to the weather radio while the other held the other person's hand. We existed in that suspended state. That crisis creates the feeling that time is both infinite and non-existent. "Tell me about your family," Kenji said at one point. While we were both huddled in the cabin watching the storm rage. "3 generations of fishermen," I said. "My grandfather came from Cuba with nothing. My father kept the business going through hurricanes and recessions and all of it. I was supposed to expand, make it bigger, modernize. Instead, I kept it exactly the same. My father thinks I'm wasting my potential. And you?" Kenji asked. "I think some things are worth keeping exactly as they are," I said. "My father taught me to read the ocean. That's not something you modernize. That's something you preserve." Kenji was quiet for a moment. "My parents are both doctors," he said. "Nigerian moved to Miami when I was a baby. They wanted me to be a doctor too. When I chose marine biology, they thought it was a phase. When I chose research, they thought I was being impractical. And now, I'm on a fishing boat during a hurricane, and I'm wondering if they were right. Are they?" I asked. "No," Kenji said, "because if I had listened to them, I wouldn't be here. And I can't imagine not being here." He was looking at me when he said it. By 3 p.m., the worst of it had passed. The eye had moved north, the pressure was rising, the wind had dropped to merely catastrophic instead of extinction level. "We're okay," I said, and I could hear the relief in my voice. "We made it." Kenji was checking the servers. His hands weren't shaking anymore. "All the data is intact. 3 years. Everything. It survived." We stood there in the cabin, this man who'd chosen to save coral reefs over a normal career. And me who'd chosen to keep a fishing boat that should have been retired years ago. We looked at each other like we'd just survived something impossible, which we had. 4 months later, Miami Beach, a university research facility. I was standing in the lobby, a place I never thought I'd be. Dressed in clothes that didn't smell like fish. Surrounded by people with PhDs, Kenji had published his preliminary findings on genetically modified coral strains. The university had fast-tracked his research. They'd offered him a position. They'd offered him resources, and he'd said yes on one condition. "I need someone to make sure I stay connected to the water," he'd told them. "Someone who understands that the ocean isn't just a research subject. It's something to be respected." So I was there. Officially, a research assistant. Unofficially, the person who made sure Kenji didn't disappear into data and forget that the reef still existed. Unofficially, the person who loved him. We'd moved in together 2 months ago, a small house in Coral Gables with a view of Biscayne Bay. At night, we could see the lights of the marina where the Maria Elena was berthed. During the day, Kenji worked in the lab, and I consulted on field research expeditions, and on weekends we took the fishing boat out just to be on the water. Not to fish. Just to be there, to remember what we'd survived, to feel the ocean under the boat. 6 months later, a dive site. 30 feet below the surface, I was wearing scuba gear for the first time in my life. Kenji had insisted wanted me to see what he was trying to save. Wanted me to understand the coral not as abstract data but as actual living organisms fighting for survival. And it was breathtaking. The reef was damaged, bleached in places, recovering in others. But it was alive. Kenji swam next to me, pointing out the coral species he'd been studying, the ones that had survived the bleaching events, the ones that might be salvageable. He was in his element. His face filtered through the mask was more alive than I'd ever seen it. We surfaced together, and he pulled off his mask, gasping for air, grinning so hard I thought his face might split. "You saw it," he said. "You saw what we're fighting for?" "I did," I said. "Are you going to keep helping?" he asked. "Because I'm going to need help. A lot of help. For the next 50 years, probably." I understood what he was asking. It wasn't about research. It was about choice. About staying. "Yes," I said, 1 year later. Biscayne Bay. Sunset. We were on the Maria Elena, dropped anchor in the calm water. It's just the two of us and the dolphins that sometimes came this close to the marina. The sun was doing that thing Miami sunsets, dew painting the sky in colors that shouldn't exist, reflecting gold and orange and pink off the water. "I have something for you," Kenji said. He pulled out a small waterproof box. Inside was a ring legant, made of white gold, with a diamond that caught the light exactly like the water was doing. "Marry me," he said. "Marry me and help me save coral reefs for the next 50 years. Marry me and teach me how to read the ocean the way your father taught you. Marry me and let me love you exactly this much." "Yes," I said, and I was crying, which was ridiculous because I was Diego Torres. 3rd-generation fisherman, and I didn't cry. But I was also Diego Torres, person who'd met someone during a hurricane and learned that some things some people were worth risking everything for. He kissed me, and the sun finished setting, and we stayed there on the boat as stars came out, watching the bioluminescent plankton glow in the water like the ocean itself was celebrating CCTV footage. NOAA research facility. Timestamp. 9 hours 47 minutes and 12 seconds. A man and a woman know. A man and a man stood in the laboratory where genetic analysis was happening. One wore research clothing, the other wore fishing clothes. They were looking at a monitor displaying coral genetic sequences. And the man in the research clothes was pointing at something, explaining, while the man in the fishing clothes listened with complete attention. On his left ring finger, a wedding band. On his right, holding the fishing boat captain's hand, another man, also wearing a wedding band. The screen shifted to another camera, the Maria Elena at dock, freshly painted. New plaque on the hull. Research and Restoration Vessel, Maria Elena Kenji Diego. 2025, the insecurity footage timestamp. 9 hours 47 minutes and 12 seconds. 2 men, hands clasped, watching coral reefs return to life on a monitor. Behind them, the ocean visible through laboratory windows. In that water, the reefs they'd fought to save, slowly healing. Around them, a life built from desperation and choice, and the refusal to let love or science or hope die.